Welcome to a video entitled Using IDisposable. And keep in mind, this is really step 2 for understanding the whole garbage collection process and how we can manipulate garbage collection and why we need to. Once we get into the business of using unmanaged resources, we're going to have to go clean those things up, or we'll create memory leaks or tie up database connections or do all kinds of things, lock files that people can't open and all that. So that's a concern. Keep in mind, step 1 of this was described in a video entitled Understanding Garbage Collection. If you haven't seen that, you might want to go watch that first. But in that video, we talked about how the garbage collection process will take care of all managed resources. What about our unmanaged resources? Well, that is what the IDisposable interface was designed to help us deal with. The garbage collector will ultimately clean up our managed objects, but the IDisposable interface is going to give us the opportunity to write some code and make it standard for anybody who consumes our code or uses our class to create an object to clean up unmanaged resources. But we can also go ahead and throw a little code in here to clean up managed resources while we're at it if we would like. Now that creates a little wrinkle for us that we'll talk about a little bit later on. Now when you're dealing with the IDisposable interface, there's only one required single method in it, and that method is called Dispose. Now the Dispose method is where we're going to write code to clean up any resources used by the class. And let me say it one more time. This was originally designed to include code to release the unmanaged resources that were used by that class. Think about database connections. If we've made a database connection is going to tie up one of the licensed connections to that database, and we want to turn that thing loose as soon as we can. And so let's talk about how calling Dispose can be used to release these resources without waiting for the GC to run. Now keep in mind the Dispose method is going to free resources, not memory, but we're really not worried about memory at this point. We're just worried about those resources. We've opened a file object and that thing is now locked. We need to drop that connection to that resource. We need to free that resource so somebody else can connect to it, and that is exactly what we're talking about here. Now Microsoft provides a basic design pattern for implementing Dispose for both base and derived classes because you want to make sure you're calling the correct Dispose method. Keep in mind, quick reminder, a derived class is a class that is inheriting functionality from another class. Now we're going to look at IDisposable in code in a separate video, and that thing will be entitled, cleverly I might add, IDisposable example. And we'll look at an implemented IDisposable interface and all the code and the base patterns, the basic design patterns for these, and I'll explain some of the oddities that you see out there, and I hope it'll really make the light come on. But, and this is a big but, what happens if you do all the hard work, you do everything just right, you implement the IDisposable interface, you write some really cool code in the Dispose method to clean everything up, and the programmer that's using your class and instantiates an object never calls the Dispose method? We've got a problem. Unmanaged resources are not going to be released ever. We're going to create some memory leaks, and if our application lives too long, we're going to see some serious issues. Now remember, what about our managed resources? Don't worry about those. We're not going to get leaks there because when the memory starts to become a problem, and eventually it will because these unmanaged resources could keep creating more and more memory leaks, the garbage collector will eventually clear the managed resources, but those unmanaged are still going to be a problem. So let's talk about the solution to this. We did our IDisposable work. We created our Dispose method. We wrote some cool code, but nobody ever called it. We've got one more shot at getting this stuff taken care of, and that's a finalizer, and that's the Finalize method. So join me next in a video that's entitled the Finalize method, and we'll talk about how we've got one more shot to get this right. So join me there.